Hi, everyone. Let's move on to stories. After what I heard from the vent, I'll never be able to sleep in silence again. I'm writing this because the police don't believe me, and the psychotherapist wrote me a prescription for strong tranquilizers. They think it's stress, overwork, auditory hallucinations. But I know that the sound I heard every night was real, and I'm afraid it hasn't gone away. It's just lying in wait. It all started 3 months ago when I moved into my new apartment. A dream, not an apartment. 22nd floor in a brand new building, panoramic windows, a view of the city that turned into a scattering of golden lights in the evening. I spent all my savings, took out a mortgage, but felt like the king of the world. The first 2 weeks were pure bliss. Unpacking boxes, buying furniture, the first party with friends. I was completely happy. That's when I first heard it. It was deep in the night around 3 o'clock. I woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen for water. The building was submerged in that special nightly silence where you can hear the hum of the refrigerator. And in that silence, I caught an extraneous sound, barely noticeable, a quiet, intermittent scraping, as if a mouse were scratching somewhere in the wall. The sound was coming from the ventilation grate in the kitchen, which was connected to the main building shaft. A new building? Mice? That's absurd, I thought. It was probably the house settling or a pebble rolling around in the pipes. I shrugged, drank my water, and went to bed. The sound was so quiet that I forgot about it 5 minutes later. That was the first crack in my perfect world, as thin as a hair. I just didn't notice it. I didn't hear anything for the next few nights. Or maybe I just slept soundly. Life went on. Work, meeting friends, setting up my nest. I almost convinced myself that I had dreamed the sound, and then it came back. I was sitting at my laptop late one evening, finishing up some report. The apartment was quiet, with soft music playing, and through the music, I heard it again, the same scraping. I turned off the speakers and listened intently. Yes, definitely. Shh. Scrape, scrape, scrape. A pause. Again. Shh. Scrape, scrape, scrape. This time the sound seemed more deliberate. It wasn't chaotic, it had a rhythm. 3 short, 1 long, 2 short. I walked over to the ventilation grate and pressed my ear against it. A smell of dust and stale air wafted out. The scraping grew louder. It was somewhere in there, in the darkness, in the concrete belly of the building. Maybe a neighbor's kid is hitting a pipe with a toy, the thought flickered. But at 3 in the morning, I tried to find a rational explanation. Maybe a tree branch was hitting the outside of the building, but I live on the 22nd floor. Maybe it was some system in the building, air conditioners, pumps. I convinced myself that there was a logical explanation for everything, that I was just tired, that my imagination was running wild. I felt a little uneasy, but I forced myself to get back to work. That night, for the first time, I went to bed with a slight, irrational anxiety, as if someone was watching, though there was no one to watch. The next night, it happened again, the same rhythmic scraping. I listened again, trying to understand its nature. I even tried to record it on my phone's voice recorder, but when I listened to the recording, there was only steady white noise, no scraping. That's what truly scared me. Does this sound exist only for my ears? I began to doubt my own sanity. Maybe it's tinnitus, ringing in the ears, but I'd never suffered from that. And the sound wasn't in my ears, it was over there, in the wall. I could clearly feel it. Over the weekend, I met up with friends at a bar. After a couple of beers, I laughingly told them about my poltergeist in the ventilation. Dude, you just have new homeowner paranoia, Leoka clapped me on the shoulder. It's always like that. In a new place, every little noise seems suspicious. You'll get used to it. Get a cat, Sveta advised. If it's a mouse, he'll find it fast. And if it's a ghost, at least the cat will see it. We laughed, and I almost calmed down. It really did sound crazy. I was probably just overthinking it. But that very night, the scraping stopped, and something worse began. I woke up around 4 in the morning. The apartment was dead silent. I lay there, listening. There was no scraping. Well, there you go, I thought with relief. It's finally over. I was just about to drift back to sleep when I caught a new sound. It was a whisper, dry, barely audible, like the rustle of autumn leaves on asphalt. It was also coming from the vent. I couldn't make out a single word. It was just a stream of hissing, whistling sounds, but unlike the scraping, there was something alive in this sound. Human. My heart sank into my stomach. I lay there, not daring to move, listening to this nightmarish whisper. It would fade and then reappear. It was like bad radio interference with a voice breaking through. I covered my ears with my hands, but it seemed I could hear it right inside my head. In the morning, I looked like a zombie. I hadn't slept a wink. The first thing I did was go to my neighbor, a nice girl named Alia, who lived across the hall. Alia, hi, I tried to look as normal as possible. Listen, stupid question. You don't hear any strange noises at night, do you? From the vents, for example? She looked at me with genuine surprise. Noises? No, I don't think so. It's quiet as a tomb in my place. What's up? Oh, nothing, I forced a smile. Probably just imagined it. The walls are thin, you know. Her reaction devastated me. She heard nothing. That means it's only happening to me. I returned to my apartment, and for the first time, it felt alien and hostile. My home, my fortress, had become a trap. I began my own investigation. By day, I was an ordinary office clerk, but by night, I became an obsessed paranoid. I spent hours on our residential complex's forums, on construction portals, in renovation groups. I searched for any information about ventilation problems, strange sounds, anything at all. Most of the topics were about mold, leaks, and utility bills. Nothing like my story. I was ready to give up when I stumbled upon an old archived city forum. There, in a 10-year-old thread, I found something that made my blood run cold. A user with the nickname Sova79 had created a topic, strange voice from the vent in the new building on Prospect Mira. Our building was on Prospect Mira. I stared at the text. The person described my situation exactly. First the scraping, then the whisper. He couldn't record it either. The neighbors heard nothing. He also thought he was going crazy. I feverishly read the comments. People advised him to contact engineers, the management company, a psychiatrist. He replied that he had done all that, to no avail. And then his messages became more alarming. This whisper, it's getting louder. Yesterday, I clearly made out a word. My name. It knows about me. It whispered the name of my dog that died 5 years ago. How? I've sealed the vent with tape, but now I hear it from inside the wall, like it's crawling in there, right behind the wallpaper. I read on, feeling an icy terror creep down my spine. This wasn't just a similar story. This was my script, written out 10 years in advance. The last message from Sova79 was short. It was written in all caps. It's not in the wall, it's in the silence. After that, his account went inactive. Not a single message in the last 10 years. I sat in front of the monitor and the room swam around me. What did that mean? In the silence. What happened to that person? I realized I was in much greater danger than I had thought. This wasn't just a glitch. This was something real, and it had been here before. From that night on, hell began, the survival phase. I stopped trying to understand anything. I just wanted it to stop. The whisper grew louder, more insistent. Now it didn't just mumble, it called to me. Kirill. The dry, dead voice stretched from the ventilation grate. I did the same thing Sova79 did. I bought several rolls of reinforced duct tape and sealed the ventilation grates in the kitchen and bathroom in multiple layers. It didn't help. Just as he had written, the sound simply moved. Now it seemed as if the walls themselves were whispering. I would lie down in bed and hear that Kirill from behind the headboard. I would sit on the couch and it would rustle from behind my back. I stopped sleeping. How can you sleep when an invisible entity in your wall is calling you by name? I paced the apartment like a cornered animal. I turned on music, the TV at full volume. Any noise was a salvation. But as soon as there was a pause, the slightest second of silence, I would hear it again. Kirill. One night, it whispered something that made me scream. It whispered the phrase I had said to my mother right before she died, a phrase that no one but the two of us could have known. I snapped. I called the police. A weary patrol arrived. 2 young guys. Shaking, I tried to explain it to them, about the whisper, the forum, about how it knows my secrets. They inspected the apartment, knocked on the walls. "Man, it's quiet in here," one of them said, looking at me like I was crazy. "There's nothing." "Turn off your radio," I begged. "Just stand in the silence." They exchanged a glance. One of them turned off his radio. We stood in complete silence for about 30 seconds. For them, it was silence. For me, it was a deafening whisper that was now saying, "They won't believe you." You've got a case of the nerves, it seems, the second officer concluded. You should get some rest, or see a doctor. This is a false alarm, by the way. They left. I was alone, completely alone against it. The attempt to call for help had failed. Worse, I was now officially the crazy guy. I reached the end of my rope. I hadn't slept for what felt like 3 days. I sat on the floor in the middle of the room, my head in my hands, rocking back and forth, listening to that endless whisper. I was on the verge of a complete collapse. And then, through the whisper, I heard that first sound again, the scraping. It was quiet, desperate. Shh, scrape, scrape, scrape. The same rhythm. 3 short, 1 long, 2 short. I froze. Why was it back? I listened, and in my exhausted brain, something clicked. The rhythm. I had seen a rhythm like that somewhere, in war movies, about sailors, Morse code. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hit the keys. I opened a search engine. Morse code online. 3 dots, a dash, 2 dots. That was the letter F. No, not right. I listened intently, trying to memorize it. 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots. SOSOS. The scraping from my wall was transmitting a distress signal. And then there was another rhythm. Dot dash dot. R. No. Again. Dash dot dot D. No. I frantically went through the options, and suddenly I understood. It wasn't the Latin alphabet. It was Russian letters. Dot dash dash. I dash 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 Z dot dot dash V. Izivne. The signal wasn't SOS. It was from outside. And then it hit me. The realization was like a bolt of lightning. All this time, I thought the whisper and the scraping were the same thing, that it was changing its tactics, but they were 2 different signals. The scraping was a warning, a desperate attempt by someone or something to reach me, to tell me that the threat was from outside, not from inside the wall. And the whisper was the hunter, the lure. It was distracting me, driving me insane, while the real threat. I looked at the ventilation grate, sealed shut with tape, and I understood my monstrous mistake. I hadn't locked an exit, but an entrance. I had cut myself off from the one trying to warn me. I rushed to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and started tearing at the tape. It came off with chunks of wallpaper and paint. Underneath was the cold metal grate. What? I screamed into the dark opening. What do you want? The whisper in the walls instantly fell silent. An absolute, dead, unnatural silence descended, the kind that makes your ears pop. And in that silence, a new sound came from the depths of the ventilation shaft. It wasn't a scrape, and it wasn't a whisper. It was a slow, heavy, dragging sound, as if something very large and very heavy, clinging to the concrete with its claws, was slowly crawling upwards, towards me. I realized that the warning, from outside, didn't mean outside the building. It meant outside your apartment. It was coming for me through the shared shaft, and I had just opened the door for it. I don't remember how I ran out of the apartment. I don't think I closed the door. I ran down the stairs, jumping over steps, not waiting for the elevator. I burst out onto the street, into the cold autumn night, in just a t-shirt and sweatpants. I never went back there. Ever. I called the realtor, told him I was moving out. I made up some nonsense about relocating to another city. Movers packed my things. I couldn't even bring myself to step over the threshold. I've been living on Lyoka's couch for a month now. I sold that apartment at a huge loss just to get rid of it. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm taking pills. I'm trying to convince myself it was just a prolonged psychotic episode brought on by stress. It almost works. During the day. But every night, I wake up in terror. I can't sleep in silence anymore. I have to have headphones on with loud music. If I find myself in silence, I start to hear a phantom whisper. I feel like it's everywhere. I'm finishing writing this in a noisy 24-hour cafe. Dawn is breaking outside. It's safe here. There are lots of people, sounds, life. It can't get me here. I'm finishing my cold coffee, feeling a sense of relief for the first time in a long while. I've gotten it all out. Maybe it'll be easier now. I close my laptop, and then, through the hum of the coffee shop, the clatter of dishes, and the laughter from the next table, I hear it, right by my ear. A dry, rustling, painfully familiar whisper that no one can hear but me. It says just one word. Found you.